Long ago, before we had Raging Bolt, before we had Wiglet, before we had Galarian Weezing, yes, even before we had Alolan Exeggutor, Pokemon had the grand idea of take thing and stretch it to make new thing. Only back in Gen 5, it wasn't a Pokemon they did this with, it was the gym badges. And I guess after 14 years of that, they needed to change them somehow. Pokemon Black and White was a sort of soft reboot for the franchise in many ways, and while not a major part of that, Game Freak decided that changing the overall shape of the gym badges was a thing to do. And in this very video your eyes are upon right now, we are going to go over and explain all 10. Yep, 10, because they even elongated the list of badges. Between Black and White and Black 2 and White 2, 2 gyms stopped and 2 different gyms started. So the overall Unova experience gives us 10 different badges. And the first is already very unique. It's the Trio Badge, which is given to you by Salon, Chili, or Crest. I just noticed all 3 of them also pronounce C in their names differently. Isn't English great? 3 different gym leaders, but not a triple battle. You only face one of them. Which one? Well, that depends on which one would be super effective on the starter you chose. They are the grass or fire or water type gym leaders. And for example, let's say you chose Oshawott because you're based.
Hang on, didn't you pick Snivy?
If you chose Oshawott, then you'll face Salon here, whose Pansage is super effective against your Oshawott. Repeat for the other wise monkeys for the rest. Honestly, it's a really good first gym because it simply explains type matchups for newcomers, which is Pokemon's main battle mechanic. As for the badge they give you, it's the same regardless of who you battle. It's the Trio Badge, with colors representing the triad of types. On its side, it even resembles a little bow tie, which aptly reflects all 3 leaders, who all have bow ties, as their gym is a butler cafe after all, which is just like a maid cafe, but with twink. It's located in Striaton City, a play on striations, which are lines, stripes, grooves, or what have you, that run parallel to each other, mostly in the context of geology, but also striated clouds exist, and are pretty common. And you'll soon see that every single city in Unova is named after cloud things. Striations do fit the badge symbolically too, though, because the triangle of starters and the 3 wise monkeys are all parallel too. All different, yes, but all parallel, equal, the same. Also, Striaton has tri in it, which means 3. Like the 3 gym leaders. It's really a perfect city for these boys. Oh, and their whole restaurant theming reminds me. I wish I could start eating healthier again, but I just don't have the time! Well, guess what, chicken butt? You can, thanks to today's sponsor, Factor. Restaurant quality, dietitian designed, delicious, ready to eat meals. I use them quite regularly during my keto journey, and I get it. Sticking to a diet sucks. It is hard in this era, especially during your short lunch break at work. It's so easy to just go to fast food. Having healthier options that quickly is hard. But Factor makes it easy. Every one of their fresh, never frozen meals are around 550 calories or less and use the same microwaving instructions. Here's 2 minutes, boom! God, I love this butter chicken. I am a curry courtesan. And they've got more than keto options, of course. In fact, they have over 35 different options to choose from each week, and at any time you can adjust your order size or skip the next one entirely. It's completely flexible. And heck, if you don't want to, you don't even have to think about it. Choose your plan and let them choose the meals they send to your doorstep each week. It can't get easier than that. But it can get even more affordable with the deal I'm gonna give you. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use the code Lockstin50 to get 50% off of your first Factor box. That's right, half off. And they've also got cold pressed juice, the kind that sounds terrible, but then you try it and you're like, oh wait, this is actually pretty good. Never thought I'd like grass. Which is not the type of Unova's next gym leader. Once you're finished up having a ton of fun beating up one of the ugly monkeys, we move on to Nacrene City, where we face off against Lenora and get the basic badge. I'm sorry, are you trying to tell me that this lovely lady, who's an archaeologist and the leader of the city's museum, is a basic? She is clearly anything but I guess the name makes sense though, because the gym is the normal type gym. Normal, basic, same diff. And the badge resembles the spine of a hardcover textbook. It's a book. It's a pretty basic looking one too, in fact. The only really interesting feature is that it's a pretty burgundy purple color. The city's name also ties into all of this in a pretty fun way though. Nacreous clouds are polar clouds glowing with iridescent colors, which doesn't necessarily relate to the gym badge or Lenora until you realize that another basis for the city's name is nacre, or mother of pearl, which is the shimmery, iridescent, organic, inorganic composite material that makes up the inside of some mollusks' shells. And also it's what pearls are made of. It's just like a metaphor for normal type Pokemon. Just like most mollusks, normal types appear plain and boring from the outside, but if you look deeper, there's more to them. Inner beauty. Well, except for Ambipom. You go! Also, and this may be a stretch, but if you look closely at the nacre of mollusks, like really closely, you can see that its microscopic structure is made up of stacks of platelets of argonite, and they almost look like the lines on the spines of old-fashioned hardcover books, like the kind of book the badge resembles. Pretty neat, huh? Next up, we go to battle Berg in the Castelia City Gym and receive the insect badge. I do so wonder what that badge could be. Yeah, the name is a little too on the nose for my taste. I prefer the direct translation of the Japanese name for the badge, which means beetle badge, which is both alliterative and cute. The badge looks like the elytra of beetles, that is, the hardened forewings of beetles, and this is a bug-type green color as well. It's also pretty fitting for Berg, especially because he's an artist, the torture genius type, and loves nature. And many insects look like works of art themselves, no? And many insects make works of art. And there are a few ways that beetles themselves have been used in art too, all throughout history. Just one big relevant example is that the color carmine is traditionally made up using dried, crushed up female cochineal beetles, which aren't actually a beetle, but rather a parasite bug that attaches itself to a prickly pear cacti. And also it takes about 70,000 of these insects to make 1 pound of cochineal dye. So obviously it was understandably expensive, which is why it was often so prized by European royalty, and at one point was the third most valuable export of the New World after gold and silver. And near perfectly, the red and green of Berg's outfit looks a lot like a cochineal bug attached to a cactus. Coincidence? I think maybe! Oh yeah, also Castellanus clouds are a thing, hence the Castelia city name. It's the big city with the big skyscrapers, and Castellanus clouds are the ones that are large vertical columns, often adjacent to others, so it really is just perfect. It's a big major skyscrapery city. Next up, it's the Bolt badge, earned by defeating Elisa in Nimbasa City. It's the electric type badge and looks like a lightning bolt or a crown atop a Pikachu or Emolga tail, which is very fitting since 2 of Elisa's 3 Pokemon in this gym are Emolga. The fact that this electric type gym is in Nimbasa City is also very fitting as always, since it's named partially after cumulonimbus clouds, which are the kinds of clouds that normally accompany thunderstorms. You know, thunder, lightning, electricity, and all that jazz. Also, nimbus in its original Latin means a shining heavenly cloud surrounding a deity. And what is the supermodel Elisa's big puffy jacket illuminated by the hundreds of photographers around her, if not that? For badge number 5, we get the Quake Badge, given to us by Clay. And even with no prior knowledge, I think you could guess what type Clay's Quake Badge represents. Yep, steel. I mean ground, the ground type. But this ground type gym is in Driftvale City, which makes the badge's design fit even better because it looks like a sliver of the ground showing many layers of the earth, otherwise known as strata. And this stratigraphical sliver is being rendered in two as if by something violent, such as an earthquake or tectonic drift. Driftvale City, it's perfect. And yes, it's a cloud pun too, because cloud drift is the term for them moving, and a cloud veil is a thing too. It's when there's mist around the middle part of a large cloud, making it look sort of like it's wearing a big hat. Oh my god! The layering of the earth motif continues in Clay's clothes, which are composed of different shades of brown, which matches the shades of brown on the badge pretty well. Also, Clay has this blue-green color accenting his outfit, which is also seen in this blue-green dot on the bottom of the gym's badge. It's turquoise, most likely, a fairly rare mineral, you know, from the ground, and has a lot of spiritual significance to a lot of First Nation tribes, particularly those in the Southwest, but also many Algonquin peoples, those in the area that is today New York, so Unova. It's one of the few things the natives in the area actually mined for, as it's said to protect their carriers in battle, and it was said to have fallen deep into the earth after falling from the clouds. Now we move from Driftwheel City to Mistralton City, where after Donkey Konging our way to the high-flying Skyla and defeating her, we are rewarded with the Jet Badge, which looks a lot like a fancy blue feather with a very simplistic but stylized bird flying downwards underneath it, leaving a streak of misty clouds in its wake, or being a jet that's leaving, well, you know, chemtrails? Those things that are as real as birds? If you don't know, you're blessed. But there is a fairly popular conspiracy theory, especially in the US, where airliners and jets are leaving trails of chemicals in the atmosphere to trickle down and control the minds of the masses, so that we don't realize the Earth is flat, because, you know, the rich and powerful don't breathe the same air we do. In reality, there's complicated science involved, but to dramatically oversimplify it, anything moving as rapidly as a jet engine that high up in the sky in the right temperature and moisture level is going to disturb the air's ambient humidity and create mist in its path. Hence the mist in Mistralton City, which again is the city you get the badge in, and it has a major airport. But the name is even more than that. The Mistral is a regularly occurring, strong, cold, northwestern wind in southern France. So maybe that was a hint to Gen 6. But with all these wind and sky things, it's no wonder that it's the flying type gym. Even the leader is named Skyla, and she certainly has an outfit. She has no wrists, which I guess kind of makes her arms more closely resemble wings. And all of those straps and buckles makes her outfit resemble a military fighter jet pilot uniform, but I guess the Halloween sexy time variant. Oh good, she's 18, I can say that. They're still kinda sussy, game freak. Well, let's go to Icarus City now and fight Bryson for the Ice-type Freeze Badge. It looks like a bunch of icicles. Why are the Ice-type ones always so straightforward? Well, I guess looking at Bryson's ace Pokemon, Beartic, it also resembles the 3 icicles on Beartic's face. Wow, and being that it's Icarus City, it's highly elevated and right next to Twist Mountain, so maybe you could also see it as like the top part of the badge is representing like the city or the mountain. But isn't the city name fun? Yeah? Icarus? Or Icarus? Oh, is it actually pronounced Icarus? Because cirrus clouds are a thing. They're those really clouds that... They're those clouds that are like really high up there in the atmosphere. And rather than being made of water particles, they are made of tiny ice crystals. So it's just perfect. And now, the final gym badge you get in black and white is the Legend Badge in Appaloosid City, which you get from either Drayden in black or Iris in white, but dragon type either way. This badge resembles... a spiky... thing. I can see a couple of things here. Like maybe a dragon sorcerer's spiky magic staff with a magic orb in it. Or maybe a broken medieval morning star? It is kind of dragony itself. Maybe? Like if the orb was the eye, and then it's a spiky dragon head. Or a spiky dragon wing. Who's their ace Pokemon? They both use Haxorus as their ace. Okay, so perhaps it's a very stylized Haxorus blade. The orb is the eye, and the long part is the part of the blade that goes up. They just made it really spiky too. Maybe because they also both use Dredagon as their second most powerful Pokemon? Either way, being the Legend Badge is fitting. You're a legend for getting it. I mean, it's the last badge you need in black and white. But also, dragons themselves are all about myths and legends, because they aren't real, like chemtrails. But there's also many stories or legends about them to begin with, because that's where they came from. Such as the legend of the dragon-slaying St. George, who Drayden and Iris fit into pretty well. We did a whole video about that up here, if I can find it. I do not remember which video it was in. It'll be linked there, and at the end. But as for how the city name ties in, Appaloosid could combine opacious and translucidus clouds, which are similar, but opposites in one regard. These are the overcast clouds that pretty much go on for as far as you can see, just a blanket of cloud covering the entire sky. The difference is that translucidus clouds are semi-transparent, so the light coming from the sun or the moon can shine through them enough that you can pinpoint the location of them, whereas opacious clouds are opaque, so you can't really tell where the sun or the moon is through them. Both cover everything, like Dragon's many resistances to the main 4 elemental types. But the difference here is how bright or dark it is, how black and white it is, or maybe even how thick and experienced. Drayden is a lot more of both of those compared to Iris. But also, this entire city is the same but different depending on which version of the games you're playing. In Black and Black 2, it's a city of the future, shining lights and glass-covered buildings, whereas in White and White 2, it's a city of the past, more trees, which is nice, but the buildings and roads are more cobblestone and concrete, much more opaque, much less shiny and transparent. So here, the city name covers both versions of it. Very clever, Game Freak. Love that for you. And now we advance time by a few years because it's Black 2 and White 2 time. There's 2 minor differences and 2 major differences here. The minor differences are simple. Iris is no longer a gym leader, so now Drayden is by himself. And Lenora now only runs the museum and left the gym leadering to Sharon, your rival from the first game. But he still just gives you the basic badge because he is just a basic badge. The 2 major differences now, though, there's no more Freeze badge, and no more Trio badge, or gyms even. You go to completely different areas and face different leaders altogether now. And the first we face after defeating Sharon for the basic badge is Roxy and the Toxic badge. Poison type, obviously. It resembles a bunch of poisonous bubbles, a common way to depict a poison status effect or surface. The top bubble even has little crossbones behind it, a common way to mark something as deadly or toxic. Plus, it fits her name. The X in Roxy, the X in Toxic, and it fits the first Pokemon she throws out too, Coughing, who has a skull and crossbones on its body. Actually, come to think of it, her ace Pokemon is Whirlipede and later Scolipede, who have these purple or red circles on them. So perhaps when curled up and spinning rapidly, yeah, they could resemble her badge. But as for the gym's location, Burbank City also has the Burbank Complex, an industrial complex that shoots out tons of pollution through its smokestacks, which is also very fitting of the city where the poison-type gym is. And in that context, you could also see the badge as a stylized plume of toxic gas rising up out of the smokestack. Cool. As in not cool, but cool. Where's my cloud pun? It's here. A virga is a part of a cloud. Specifically, it's a streak or shaft of precipitation you can see in the distance. So like, it's distant rain. But specifically, due to other weather conditions, that rainwater re-evaporates before it hits the ground, giving the clouds this peculiar shape. It's a punk of a cloud. It's like, ooh, I'm gonna give you rain. Huh. Take it back. And the bank part of the city's name is just because it's next to a riverbank. Now, we fast forward all the way through 5 of the same gyms, get the legend badge as the 7th, and now we head to Humilau City for the 8th gym badge? The wave badge? This is just kind of beta Alola. New York doesn't really have anything like this. A gentrified, tourist-happy, Polynesian-inspired city. But maybe the other new city, Burbank, is possibly inspired by Burbank in California, which was also a big industrial city, so maybe they're adding new cities based on other major cities in America. It's possible. I guess it's not too out of place. Either way, though, this city's name comes from 2 root words. The first is a cloud. Go figure. The cumulus-humulus. Very common summertime clouds that are often referred to as fair weather clouds. Like, if it's a beautiful, gorgeous day, the temperature's just right, the moisture's just right, the sun is shining, and there's just a couple clouds in the sky, those are cumulus-humulus clouds. Most likely. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but that's how I really like pronouncing it. Is it cumulus-humulus? Humilau City also pulls from Hukilau. Humilau City also pulls from Hukilau, though, which is the traditional fishing method used by ancient Hawaiians involving a large net, hence Marlon and his large diving getup with large net. As for the badge design, it's pretty straightforward. First of all, it's a water droplet, but then given the lines inside of it, maybe it also resembles many layers of ocean waves on top of each other as they hit the beach. Fun. It is definitely a pretty badge. And while this time around it seems like the names of the badges are much more straightforward, there still was quite a bit of thought put into their actual design and tying them into the gym leaders and or the cities of the gyms themselves, which is really, really cool. It's a shame that they only did this for, what, 1 more generation, and even then barely? You'll see in the next one, which will probably be the last.